Another important aspect of spraying is making sure that we get an ideal spray pattern and making sure we have the right boom height. One of the most common mistakes that people make with boom height is they think that the lower that I go, the less drift and bad things can happen with that spray pattern. But here's the problem with that thinking. When you look at this nozzle here, it's putting out the majority of its spray right in the center, and then there's a bell-shaped curve over here, bell-shaped curve over here. So you're actually getting less chemical as you go farther out in that pattern. So what's absolutely ideal about boom height is you want to make sure that this nozzle is overlapping to the center of this nozzle is overlapping to the center of this nozzle, and so forth. Even with a canopy, you have to select your boom height appropriately. If I have a corn crop that's this tall, I need to be about 20 inches above that. Now, when you look at your boom height, you will have to identify your nozzle spacing and the types of nozzles. For example, a 15-inch spacing, you can be a little bit closer to that target. With a 20-inch spacing, you're going to want to be a little higher, 30-inch, a little higher than that. Also, if you have a 110-degree fan, so 110 degrees fan out this way, you will actually have to be a little bit higher than, let's say, an 80-degree fan. Okay? So with that, it determines the boom height that you have here. Now, when you look at this spray pattern here, I'm just going to start out low. I'll show you the ideal spray height that you have here for your boom. So if I'm clear down here at the ground, you can see we're having no overlap whatsoever. Finally starting to get overlap here. Here's about the ideal, if your target height is the floor here, here's about the ideal size here, where we're getting this fan out to the center and crossing to the center of this fan right here. This one's crossing to the center over to this one. So that's your ideal boom height. You want to make sure, even on windy days, to maintain that proper boom height, otherwise you can have problems. If you don't get the right boom height, one of the biggest problems that I've seen is that people will lower that boom so close to that crop canopy. And if I have a corn row that goes right under that nozzle, I am getting a majority of my spray from this nozzle right down into that whorl of that corn plant, which can cause some problems with the chemistries that we're using. So getting the correct boom height is absolutely critical. So there's 4 main steps in controlling a weed. The first thing you have to do is you have to contact the weed. We're going to discuss those in further videos, talking about nozzles and spray pressures and those type of things. The second thing, though, that we have to do is we have to actually absorb that herbicide into that plant. Okay, and a lot of that has to deal with actually getting contact with that weed and spreading that droplet out on the surface. All the longer that you have to actually get that herbicide absorbed in the leaf is from the time that you make that application until it dries on the leaf. Okay, so during that time, it's absolutely critical that that herbicide is being absorbed in that leaf. Anything that I can do to either increase the length of time by which that droplet is wet on the leaf or increase my overall herbicide absorption during that time will increase my herbicide control. So what I have here, we're going to talk a little bit about surfactants. Surfactants are a chemical that will actually help to spread droplets on that leaf surface and allow that herbicide to be taken up more quickly in the plant. Okay, so what I have here is I have just water and food coloring on this side. Now what we have down here, this is wax paper. Now a lot of our leaf surfaces, especially if you think of some of our most common weeds, water hemp, for example, has a very waxy leaf surface. Okay, what I want to demonstrate here is when you put this water droplet on this surface, what you'll notice is that you have those droplets that are just kind of holding together here. And with that, it's not spreading out on that leaf surface. Now, if I leave this here over time, what you'll see is that these will actually evaporate fairly quickly and won't spread out over that leaf surface. Okay, so instead what we like to do, especially with certain herbicides, is we like to add a surfactant to that mix. Now this is a non-ionic surfactant blend here, and water and food coloring. So it's the exact same blend here, but the only difference is it has a surfactant. what you'll notice is when I spread this out on the leaf surface, you will actually see that it'll spread out a lot better than just the water alone. If we left this here for a longer period of time as well, this would actually end up staying wetter longer on that leaf surface, which increases the amount of penetration of the weed surface. Okay, so that's what this is really, that surfactant. A lot of these adjuvants are really just helping us to get more of that herbicide and that active ingredient into that leaf surface. The final two steps, we have to move that herbicide to the site of action, and then we actually have to get enough of that herbicide to move to the site of action to actually kill the plant. And anything that I can do, for example, adding surfactant, to increase the amount of herbicide that I get into that plant will increase my overall herbicide control. Today we're going to talk a little bit about adjuvants and some of the help that it gives a lot of the herbicides that we're applying. A lot of our weeds and some of our crops have a fairly thick, waxy cuticle on top of them. So oftentimes we have to add in some sort of an oil or a surfactant to help burn through that waxy layer so that we can actually get the herbicide to penetrate into that plant. And so what I'm going to demonstrate today is some of the different adjuvants you can put in with those herbicides to increase the activity of the herbicides. So today what we have here, we have non-ionic surfactant. Starting down here at non-ionic surfactant, I'm just going to dump some in the cup here. This non-ionic surfactant is going to have the least amount of heat that we're putting into the tank. Okay, so it's not going to heat it up very much. What it's helping us do is it actually helps us spread that droplet out on that leaf and get better penetration, which we'll show you in another video. Okay, so non-ionic surfactants first. Then the next one we're going to deal with is crop oil concentrate. This is the first of our oils. Okay, so what this crop oil concentrate's doing is, again, it's helping melt through those waxy cuticles. It's a little bit hotter than the surfactant. The next one up is going to be a HSMOC, which would be a high surfactant MSO, so methylated seed oil. And that is going to be even hotter than the crop oil concentrate. Okay, and then the final one is just a straight MSO, methylated seed oil. It has a very high rate of MSO in there, very high rate of oil. And that one we would expect then to burn through that waxy cuticle even quicker. We use styrofoam cups because it has a waxy layer on the inside, normally to protect against the coffee leaking out. But what we're going to be demonstrating here is how quickly some of those oils actually eat through that cup. Okay, so we're going to start here with surfactant. I'm just going to dump a little bit in the bottom here. Then we're going to go into our crop oil concentrate. This is actually a high surfactant crop oil concentrate. Basically just means with the high surfactant oil concentrate, it has more surfactant in it and a little bit less oil concentration there. Next one is a high surfactant MSO. So again, a little less oil, but it is a true methylated seed oil. Then our final one is just a straight methylated seed oil, so a very high concentration of oil in it. Now, depending on the labels of the different herbicides, it will tell you which one of these you need to be applying per active ingredient that you're putting in there. So always follow and read those label directions as to which one of these you need to put in the tank. So as you can see here, when we got into the methylated seed oil, it's completely burned through the cup. The high surfactant methylated seed oil is starting to eat through the cup, but didn't quite eat through the cup. And then the COC over here, if I left it for long enough, it would start to eat through the cup, but it hasn't started yet. And then the non-ionic surfactant will not actually eat through the cup at all. It's kind of funny, when I first started this demonstration, I did this in front of a group of people who had never done it before. My counterpart and I to the west here, we were talking about it ahead of time. We said, well, God, you know what? I don't know how long this is going to take. We better set it up ahead of time. So I set all of this stuff up ahead of time. And it actually took us about 2 hours to go through and do all the other stuff before we got back to this. We came back and the cup over here was completely gone. There was no cup left. So it was kind of a good demonstration to show you how much that oil can eat through these waxy cuticles and increase your herbicide efficacy. You can really see right now the oil is actually starting to completely drain out of this cup. So starting over here, high surfactant or surfactant, crop oil, high surfactant oil, COC or MSO here, and then methylated seed oil. As we go from left over to right here, we are getting from least amount of activity all the way up to the greatest amount of activity. Again, a lot of this is going to depend on what type of herbicide you're using, and always follow label directions to know what you need to be adding into the tank.